So, do you know your value, or have you ever thought about what your value is? I was thinking about it the other day, and especially this whole process of getting started with all the social media stuff and upping my coaching practice. I was kind of shying away from wanting to expand my coaching practice because I was comparing. That's always a dangerous red flag for devaluing yourself or not valuing yourself, is comparing yourself to others and to what others are doing. It's so back to where I wanted to expand my teaching practice, just because I love teaching, and I was teaching at this place, but I wasn't getting enough hours, and I also would give people, discounts or just go overtime. But when I was trying to work out and look at my experience and researched it, I totally was devaluing myself. I've been in this industry for almost gonna be 40 years. I'm about maybe 36, 37 years. I was acting before that, when I was a kid, but professionally, we're looking at around 36 years. And also within that time, I was also starting to teach and coach within that time. I was apprenticing and assisting teaching at around 16, 17 because I loved it so much. I loved when my fellow actors, the people I was helping, were able to get concepts, and just being beside them and them nailing a role or a line, or just being that support for them. And then, whether they booked a part or not, of course it was amazing when they booked a part. We were just like, this is incredible. But also being able to support them and help them move on when they didn't get a part, because that's a huge part of acting is unfortunately a lot of rejection. And how do you get back up from that? Because you want a part so much and you connect with it so much, and of course as actors you want to work, but how do you keep going? And I think really looking at your value, and not just basing your value on another line on your resume, or or working or being on set, which is always crazy and a lot of fun at the same time. But how do you maintain that if you're not quote unquote booking? And how do a lot of I call them civilians, they go, actors only understand like, I got a call back or I got an audition. Like we're so excited, but they're like, so what happened? Did you book the part? And they're like, no, but I felt really good about it. And then the civilians are like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So you always have to look at your value. And I think not just in acting, in terms of your relationships. I think when things, and I was talking about expectations the other day, I think when things don't necessarily go our way, we kind of go, what did I do wrong? Or we go into guilt or shame. But there's so many factors, and I'll say it so many times, why you don't get a part. Being on the casting end of it, we had, it's subjective. Like, we could like one person, but the director or producer, for whatever reason, doesn't click with them. It could be it's so hard to tell. And so you have to go back as an actor and go, what's my value? So you can get back up again. So I want you to think about that. What is your value? Because we're based on a society that's how they, we're sold things, is because we're not enough. If you get this perfume, if you get this latest cream, or get this car, or whatever, fill in the blanks with so many things that's what's going to make you more valuable. But the thing is, and we always forget this, and this is why I'm having this chat and this reminder, is that value starts within us. In Buddhism, we talk about that as like Buddhism, your innate power and potential is within you already. We're just deluded or distracted that we don't notice it sometimes, because we're always comparing other people's lives or other people's things. I think that's the whole. I think from a Christian perspective, don't covet thy neighbor's goods. For me, I interpret that as like, stop comparing yourself and start looking at the life that you've lived. I'm seeing a lot of ancestral stuff, like, you got yourself here. And even if you're watching this right now, you must be looking for something, and you got yourself here this far. That's incredible. And you're going to get yourself even farther. You just can't give up. Like, even myself, I just kind of like, okay, I gotta, like, sometimes when I'm overwhelmed, I just gotta put one foot in front of the other, get through this. And I always kind of look at myself. And getting back to the whole teaching thing, I was a casting associate for many years, and I helped, the main casting directors find people and get them jobs. And I helped actors. My goal, my job there as the associate was to make sure the actors were ready and prepared and that we were sending out the best stuff. I didn't want to deal with, because I was also an actor, and that's out of fairness and integrity, I didn't want to deal with agents pitching me. I didn't feel it was appropriate, nor did the casting office I was working with, nor did they think it was appropriate for me to look at other people's contracts and how much people were getting paid. That just out of integrity, we didn't want to do that. So and it worked out amazingly well. I don't think they thought like, okay, an actor can be an associate and it could work out, but it worked out amazingly well because we were very clear on communication. And we'll talk about another session, we'll talk about communication, but we were very clear on, I just make sure I get the best performances out of the actors, that I find them, I've helped them find their value as an actor, the time that they put in the character. I always want to try to make sure, and even in my teaching, I was doing a session with someone yesterday, and which is why I really wanted to talk about this today, was the last thing I said to this young actor. I said, make sure you remember and never forget your value, because this young actor is coming from internationally and is coming here. And I told him I love working with international students because sometimes they're underestimated because they didn't grow up in this country, that they have an accent or anything. I said, no, that is your value. I think, I noticed that they worked twice as hard because the journey that they had to do to get to America to learn whatever it is, it doesn't have to be acting, that took so much. But we're being told that, it's not enough. That is way more than enough. If you got yourself here, that's way more than enough. And especially, and when I work with people from that are from other places that got themselves to Los Angeles, because I know the journey it took to get to Los Angeles. The journey it took to get my green card. how much work I had to put in, how much money I had to make to get to grade. But it's a lot of work. And that's the cool thing about the process of getting, of when I got my green card. Speaking of value, I mean, I had to get letters, lots of them. I had to get press. I had to, and I had such a great person that I worked with that guided me through the whole process. I worked with a different lawyer, and they again devalued me, saying, oh no, the green card is only for people like Jim Carrey or Ryan Reynolds. And I just felt like, I'm not enough. But then I had worked with this other person. That's why it's also really important to shop around and get a good lawyer. Very important. A lawyer that understands your value. Not trying to scare you or make you feel bad. And that's another thing, like with a teacher or a relationship, or if they don't understand your value, go. Goodbye, or run the other way. That goes with everything, friendships, business relationships. So I always try to understand someone's value in the casting office when I teach. But that's a difficult thing if I don't understand my value. So really, I want you to think about, how am I valuable? What do I offer? What can I offer? And you can offer a lot. If you're stuck going around, I don't have anything to offer, then stop, breathe, get grounded, and just be gentle and start thinking about it. And you'll see, again, like how I did. I'm like, oh, wait a second. I've survived in this business through one way or another for 36 years working. When I look at my resume, and sometimes in Canada, because we don't have a star system, and you got to hand it to the culture in America. There's like almost a delusional confidence, but that works for the most part, as long as it doesn't become an imbalanced sort of hierarchy and it's more equal. Like, if your delusion is encouraging other people to also like move themselves up, then great. But if you're kind of putting other people down, or your success or your value comes from putting somebody else down, don't do that. That's gonna come back to you. That's transactional. But if looking at your value and seeing your value lifts up other people, I mean, I don't know, I'm not always perfect. I'm a human. We're all human beings. We're always perfect, but that's something you want to always kind of go for, and that's the beautiful thing. It's never static, right? I look at my value. Okay, what can I offer? What do I offer? I have years of experience. I have a lot of industry know-how. I know how to communicate better with my reps, and that is so important. Again, I think there's this hierarchy sometimes. You think, oh, it's not a collaboration. It's like they're better than me. They know more. They're the gatekeepers. But if you forget that you have something to offer, and that's why you signed with that person as your rep, because they have to make money too. And it's a business, of course, that they must have seen value. But you also got to be careful not to make stories up and ruminate and kind of go, they hate me, they don't do, like, just reach out. Not every day, but check in. I check in all the time, like every couple of weeks, or if there's something that I want to share. You got to be able to be comfortable to communicate with your reps, but not just your agents or reps. So this is just an everyday non-actor thing too, with the people that you love or that you have some sort of relationship or business with, to be able to have that. And I talked about confidence, but that comes again. Here we go. That comes with understanding your value. You will have confidence if you really work on understanding your value. So take a moment, write it down on a piece of paper, in your journal, in your app, or whatever. Write down what value you offer, and we can start with, you're a good person. I think, everyone has that potential. And in Buddhism, again, everyone has the potential for Buddhahood. It's not just one person who's a Buddha. But look at your values. Start with, you're a good person. And then look at your skills. Look at what you've overcome. Maybe even make a list of your victories. I have this little wish book that a friend gave me long time ago. I still have it. And I keep little mementos of like cast lists and on-set photos, little travel souvenirs. So when I'm not feeling my value, I go back to that and I remember the things that I overcame. I remember those things. That's another thing too. List the things that you've overcome. And I know you've overcome so much. If you've gotten here, you must have. And that's what I remind myself. I'm like, man, I've overcome so much. I've been living in LA for 10 years. I've booked a bunch of shows. I've worked with some amazing people, which I'm grateful for. And I went toe to toe with them. Overcame, I got through we all got through the pandemic. Bravo. The LA fires were like less than 2 miles away from me. Overcome, and you've probably like so much heartbreak, whether it's grief or loss of someone you love, relationships, that you've probably you've been hurt, but you still show up. And that's another thing. You just keep showing up. That's some value there if you just keep showing up. So, anyway, 4 years as a casting person, 36 years as an actor, probably just as long as coaching and teaching. And I've taught at some really great places. All of the friends who are actors and non-actors that I've been able to support in times of real need, and the fact that I'm getting better at this, am able to receive help. That's valuable too. To be able to receive and ask for help during very difficult times. And again, what other things? I'm healthy. I can pick up a lot of like skills, technical skills, like, I know how to edit and pick up the stuff, like, again, like this whole thing with TikTok and YouTube and stuff. Like, again, I'm able to pick up the editing stuff. I have some editing skills. I have some computer skills. I can, problem solve that stuff really quickly. Go through your list of things that you're good at. And I also am able to now just cook. My cooking's a lot better. Like, I pretty much bake fresh biscuits every morning. I am perfecting it. I'm also curious. That's something I have, like, I'm curious. Like, this whole YouTube thing, I'm very curious about it. And I'll also just like, nothing may happen with any of this stuff, or I'm going to put this out. And it was scary. Like, I'm sure some of you who started or wanting to start or even watching this and haven't started yet, it's scary. Like, oh. But finally, I just had said, you know what? Just do it. Just get over it and just do it. And not to sound like a Nike ad, but, you know, I'm so glad I did. You'll see my first vlog. And again, I'm willing to make mistakes. That's some value. Like, I was just inspired by this one kid at Maxime. He had such a cool, and he's from, I don't know how, Tbilisi, Georgia. But I really loved his calm aesthetic because I'm a little bit, as you might see, hyper. But I really love the calm aesthetic of it, and it just chilled me out. I'm like, oh, I want to try that. I think that's a really cool thing. And he did travel vlogs. I like calling them vlogs. That's just how I roll. But he just had this really cool way of like, and I didn't think it, like some people, oh, it's really boring, but it wasn't. It was really calming and relaxing, and some people need that. Sometimes you don't always need to be hit in the head with like monster truck, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think these days with so much going on in the world, I think people are just looking for some peace and comfort, which is why, you know, I'm doing these daily chats. Is like, you know, we're chatting with a friend and like how we're just having a bit of a coffee and we're just hanging out. So that's kind of the new skills I'm doing. I'm very curious. I have this sense of curiosity. Let's see what happens. I mean, now I'm getting better at just the mistakes thing and not being perfect. I mean, there's so many things as I'm talking to you right now that I'm branching off. I'm kind of going, oh, that would be a good chat. That would be good, like perfection, curiosity, you know, asking for help. Those are probably more future discussions that we're gonna look into and approach and discuss, and I want to chat and discuss with you. But I want you in the comments to tell me, I'm curious to tell me what value you bring. Have you even thought about it? Have you thought about what kind of value? I bet you if you think about it, it's going to be really healing. It could be tough. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's like, oh, okay, it's going to be great kumbaya. But I think if you do that exercise and really deeply think about what value you bring, then I think you're going to shift and change things, and it'll help you get through the really difficult times. Oh yeah, I'm pretty witty too. I do have to say I don't know if it's a Filipino thing or whatever, but I do have a pretty good sense of humor. I do. But, and also I think I'm consistent. I'm loyal. I can get the job done. Sometimes a little too much. Sometimes I like, you know, I try not to do 150% anymore. I think I did that as a survival technique out of panic or whatever. I'm just trying to be where I'm at and authentic and present, so I don't have to do 150. I don't have to do 200, because that can lead to burnout. And again, when you overdo that, that devalues you. Listen to that again. If you push or overdo something or overcompensate, don't you think that kind of devalues you? You're not valuing yourself or valuing your time. Because time really is our main thing. I know Eckhart Tolle doesn't like us quantifying time, but that's what we got, and we don't know how much we have. So we got to make the most of it. And if you're not valuing yourself, then a lot of the time, I don't want to say it's wasted, because there's always kind of a path of learning. But if you value yourself, then you will value your time. Again, back to the teaching and how much I was going to charge. That was a tough one. That was a tough one, because I think I undercharged and undervalued myself a lot. And I don't want to do that anymore. And I'm like, yeah, no, this is what I'm worth. Probably worth even more, but I'm working on that. But we'll start at some place that's good, and what my experience and time is worth to teach people, to share with people my experience, to be able to encourage and lift them up and send them in the proper direction, because I've been able to get this far and I want them to go farther. That's really understanding my value and understanding my worth, and that if you do that, you'll be able to make really strong, clear choices for yourself and your life. And you'll be a lot calmer, a lot more grounded. It's even just talking about this right now, I'm like, oh, because I know when I'm not valuing myself, I'm like, it becomes this thing. But now I'm like, the more I'm working this out with you, and maybe we're working this out together, I'm feeling a lot more grounded and settled, and seeing myself as I'm trying to see you, and seeing that I am doing something good, even, sharing this discussion with you, that we're doing something good together. So let's recap. Think about, either write it down or put it in a journal or on an app. But I know some of you, some generations aren't doing cursive anymore, okay? So no shade, but think about, what value do you offer? Think about it. What have you survived? What have you overcome? What have you gotten really good at? What are you not so good at, but you're planning on, getting good at? I'm brushing up on my French. Oh yeah, that's another thing. I can speak Tagalog, and I haven't been there. Like I moved to Canada when I was 4, and I didn't go back to the Philippines until like 20, 30 years later. But I can still speak the language, understand it, and write it pretty well. Like, that's wild. But again, I had a passion for it. I didn't really want to forget about it. And I had to kind of learn it to speak to my relatives. I wanted to be able to communicate with them. Yeah, I'm pretty good at languages too. So postscript, a little added value. And if you can if you haven't already, start keeping little things, whether it's a ticket or some sort of memento of a great memory. They don't have to be big, because you don't want to be like having like suitcases of like mementos, but something that helps you remember, whether it's a postcard or whatever, a really great time in your life, especially trips. I think vacations, you got yourself on a vacation, you got yourself on a trip. That took so much. I think I have like, again, mementos. I have the acceptance of my green card on a wall, my original acceptance letter, just to remember how much value. And yeah, that green card, by the end of that green card, and I'm going to wrap it up soon, by the end of the green card, I had this, like a stack of this much paperwork for the green card officer to see. And I kind of went, whoa, that's my career. That's the time I put in making the green card, but the time I put in this career. And at the time, that was probably about 30 years or so of acting, 30 years or so of survival, 30 plus years of value. And I value you.